won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all drive Porsches. I must make amends. Works
AM
hard
1220
on my
KHTS, Carl Goldman, along with Lenny Sage, owner of Mercedes Benz of Valencia. We are delving into the 5 things never, ever to say to when going in and buying a car to someone in the dealership. And we're kind of doing our David Letterman approach of weaving our way down. We're down to number 4 now, the 4th thing not to say, and that is, I have a car to trade in. How does this affect the deal? Lenny, what do you think when someone walks in with that?
It's interesting. It is important, I think, for people to understand how to address your trade-in with a dealer, and the most common school of thought would tell you, a consumer, that when you go in, you need to treat the transactions as 2 separate transactions. You're going to buy or lease the vehicle on one side, and then you're going to sell your vehicle on the other side, and you really need to separate the 2 transactions so you can maximize your value on both. You want to get your best deal on the new car, and you want to get the best deal on the car that you're selling, because a trade-in, in essence, is you selling the vehicle to the dealer. So just like you're going to do research on the vehicle that you're going to buy, you need to do research on your own vehicle. You need to understand what you're selling. Just like the dealer is going to tell you all the great things about the car they're selling you, you need to be able to tell the dealer about all the great things about the car that you're selling to the dealer. And you also should know the market value. And getting the market value on a car is very easy to do. I tell people, you want to know what the value of your car is, go online. There's 2 really good sources that I like to use, because they're really good search engines, and that's cars.com and autotrader.com, which both have pretty good search engines. You're likely going to be able to find a vehicle just like yours that's available online from either private sellers or other dealers, and you could search those through those search engines by private seller or dealer. Punch in your car. Let's say you have a 2005 Ford F-150 pickup. Punch in 2005 F-150 Ford pickup, and make sure you get the equipment right, because that matters. Make sure you put the miles in there, because that matters too. And find cars that are very similar to yours, and find out what other people are selling them for. Now, if it's a dealer selling that car, you have to assume that the vehicle is in pretty good condition. It's the dings, dents, scratches have been taken out. The car's been properly serviced. It's been properly safety checked. So you have to factor that value. And let's say he's got the car listed for $15,000. Assume that car's in pretty good shape. It's a reputable dealer that's selling that car. Assume that car's in pretty good condition, and then try to think about what your car needs. Well, my car needs service, so depending on the value of the service, it might need $500 or $1,000 worth of service. So you deduct that. It's got dings, dents, some scratches, and got $500 worth of body damage. You need to factor that against it. It may have some equipment that the dealer's car doesn't have. Your car may have more equipment than the dealer's car has. So you have to factor those items in. But that'll give you a good idea as to what your car's worth. And remember, the dealer's going to have to do that work to the car, and the dealer's going to have to make a profit when he sells that car. So really, what he's going to offer you is a wholesale value. But know what that value is. Be comfortable with that value. And if the dealer comes close to that, making you an offer, then that's probably a pretty good deal. But it's really silly not to have an idea what your car is worth, because you take the car in without knowing, and the dealer offers you $10,000. Maybe the car's worth $15,000, and he's going to make an additional $5,000 profit on you, even though you got a fair deal on the new car.
Is it better to go and trade it in with the dealer and get the wholesale amount, or go through the hassle of trying to sell it yourself and get the retail amount?
If you're going to sell the car yourself, it's not for everybody. I would never have a prospective buyer of my car come to my house. I would always meet at a public place. I would always be with a friend when I did that. And I would only ever chase, if you're going to give him a title to that car if he buys it from you, what you really need to do is make sure you get funds that are guaranteed. And even a cashier's check, people can forge a cashier's check. So I would go, if he's not going to give you cash, he's going to give you a check. I would demand a cashier's check, and I would actually take that cashier's check to the bank and verify that the funds are legitimate funds if you're going to do that. So those are some of the pitfalls in selling the car on your own. Those things can take time. And a lot of people either don't have the time, they're not inclined to do it, they don't want to meet strangers in a parking lot, in a public place, they don't want to do those things. So you have to factor that into, what is that worth for me? I don't recommend that process because there's a lot of pitfalls, potential pitfalls, as I just mentioned. I think if the dealer is going to give you a fair value, and a fair value that you've done some research on, I think it's certainly worth doing that transaction with the dealer. It simplifies everything. They do the DMV paperwork for you. They'll take care of the work that the vehicle needs, and they'll wrap that deal into the new car deal where you can transfer the equity relatively seamlessly. So it's really a no hassle process, but know what your car's worth.
And there's no lag time as well, so that's another plus. Because you have to juggle. Right, one day you go in, do it.
It happens
done.
within the scope of a 2 or 3 hour transaction. It could be a lot quicker, but the speed will happen based upon how much information the consumer has, not what the dealer has.
Good advice. We've been talking about old school versus new school. What are you seeing now in percentage of people who are coming in? With the Mercedes, where you have a higher-end car, that percentage may be different than you have a Nissan dealership as well. Are you seeing differences in that percentage of people who are trading in cars, Lenny?
I think people are more. Well, first of all, people are keeping their cars longer. People aren't. They're not on that hamster wheel of renewal like they probably were pre-recession. But I think people are more. Spending more time focusing on their trade-ins and spending more time knowing what their vehicles are worth than they were before. People are watching their pennies, their dimes, they're watching their dollars more than they ever have before. So I think we are seeing more people come in with their trade-ins, but we are seeing them spend more time talking about their trade-in than they were before. And now I want to bring up the flip side. A potential pitfall of trading in your own car, you're going to be asked to sign a disclosure acknowledgement about what you know about that car, whether it's been in a wreck, how much damage has been done to the car. It's really important that you're upfront about that, because the dealer can claw back. If you improperly disclose damage on your vehicle to a car, the same disclosure laws that I'm subject to as a car dealer, so as a consumer, and you'll be asked to sign a disclosure about what you know about the car as far as previous damage. And it's really important that you report that properly, because the clawback isn't that the dealer has sometimes can't be fun. I mean, you bring me a car and I think it's worth $20,000, but then I find out that it's it's got frame damage on it, and it's because when you owned it, it was in a substantial wreck. It's going to be worth significantly less. And it's important for us to know that, because if it's a big gap, we're going to have to figure out a way to recover the loss, because it is a loss. Because when we go to sell it again, we have to disclose it, and we will. And we'll likely uncover the damage. So it's important that you properly disclose the true value of the car, or whatever you know about the car that may impact its value when you bring it in.
The percentage of people trading in their cars with the dealer with a Mercedes versus Nissan, is there a gap?
I'm sorry. Yeah, there is a little bit, because I think the leasing is more prevalent in the higher line, so we don't have as many trade-ins per se. They're mostly lease terminations, right? With Nissan, and we also have Kia, we have Toyota, and Infiniti franchises. With those lines, other than Infiniti, we probably see fewer lease returns than we do actual trade-ins, but there's certainly a high percentage of lease terminations as well.
Lenny Sage is in the studio here on AM 1220 KHTS, the owner of Mercedes Benz of Valencia. We are talking about the 5 things not to say to a car dealer when going in to buy a car. And we're down to number 3 as we work our way to the top 10, the top 5, I mean. Someone walking in and says, right off the bat, here's how much I have to spend. Is that a no-no?
You know, I understand why it's on this list. I think, you know, one of the things that we train our salespeople is that you need to establish rapport with your client. And a part of the establishing of that rapport is qualifying their needs. What are my clients' needs with respect to this purchase? So I don't really agree with this one so much. I think it's important for us to know, you know, the last thing you want us to do is show you a car that's way out of your ballpark or show you a car that's going to insult you. You know, I don't want to show you a smart car, you know, built by Mercedes Benz. I don't want to show you a smart car if, you know, you're really looking for a sedan. Quite frankly, you know, I could tell you right now, I could name a handful of clients that might be offended if I showed them a smart car. Not that there's anything wrong with a smart car, it's just may not fit into the lifestyle of that particular person. So I think it's important to know what someone wants to spend. I think it's important to get into a budgetary range
Yeah.
Exactly with the client. So then we could narrow the search down, especially for that client that comes in completely unarmed, doesn't know what he wants. It's important for us to be able to qualify those needs, and having a good budget is one of those needs that we really need to know, and it helps us put you start you in the right direction. I can't tell you how many times, Carl, I've been accused of, oh, you just showed me that $130,000 car because you want to make a lot of money. Well, no, I showed you a $130,000 car because what I thought you wanted to see was a fine luxury world-class sedan, and maybe we need to look at something that is more fits into what you had in mind. So I need to know that. I don't want to show you a $130,000 car if you're in the market for a $50,000 car. I could show you a great car at $50,000, but I don't want to waste your time by showing you a $130,000 car if I don't know what your budgetary range is. And you know, and that's when the process gets long. I mean, one of the biggest complaints we have at all of our dealerships across the board is the time it takes to buy a car. And that time could be reduced if we had a better idea of, for one thing, what your budget is. So I don't really agree with that point right there.
Good. Lenny Sage, Mercedes Benz Valencia. We're going to find out the number 2 and number 1 things not to ask when you're entering a car dealer right after this short break. AM 1220 KHTS, hometown station.